They discovered hidden mysteries in Ezekiel's prophecy of restoration that will leave you shocked. Few knew what truly happened at night in the dusty streets of ancient Jerusalem, where whispers of hope met shadows of despair. Men and women gathered, their hearts heavy, eyes wide with fear. They awaited a miracle promised long ago, a vision of dry bones rising to life, of a lost nation finding its spirit again. Ezekiel's words echoed through those streets. Prophecies so vivid, angels seemed to dance among the ruins. The temple lay in ruins, still and haunting, as if it mourned its people. The air was thick with anticipation, hope clashed with pain. Could their shattered dreams ever be restored? And yet, a fire burned within them. The heavens seemed to respond, dark clouds swirling ominously above. The sound of thunder rolled. A flock of doves, white as purity, erupted into the sky, scattering chaos. Was this a sign? Or mere coincidence? People murmured. Could it be? Is restoration truly at hand? The fear of disappointment was palpable, a tightness in their chests. What if this was just another false dawn? But the possibilities loomed large. Suddenly, a man stepped forward, eyes blazing with conviction. God has not forgotten us. He shouted. The bones will rise again. We will be made whole. Gasps echoed. Hearts raced. To believe would mean to risk everything. Each whisper carried weight, and every glance exchanged sparked electric tension. Could they dare to hope? Or would this be yet another cruel trick of fate? Dense silence enveloped the crowd, broken only by the soft rustling of leaves, as every soul held their breath. The impossible hung in the air. Ezekiel had seen visions of the impossible before, but what if this time, it was real? What lay hidden beneath those dusty bones? Hope? Despair? Or something far more profound? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. In the heaviness of the night air, where hope and despair warred within the hearts of the people, a sense of stillness hung palpably around the man with the blazing eyes. His voice, like a clarion call, pierced through the uncertainty. Yet, for all the fervor he inspired, there was a deeper question that lingered like an uninvited guest. What does it truly mean to be restored? The crowd shifted uneasily, whispers reverberating like a heartbeat within the assembled masses. Eyes brimmed not only with hope but with uncertainty, a blend of past pains and dreams dashed. A woman, weary yet steadfast, grasped her child tightly. Tell me, she pleaded softly, how do we believe again after so long? The man, sensing her anguish, pondered her words. He glanced up at the swirling clouds, where darkness conspired against a fragile dawn, and came to realize that belief required more than mere words. It demanded action, a return to the roots of their faith, the remembrance of their ancestors' defiance against despair. In that moment, it became clear that restoration would not be seamless or without cost. To rise again, the people would need to confront their own shadows, the parts of themselves that had grown too comfortable in despair, the bones of their doubt growing thick with dust and neglect. He knew they must first understand the depth of their valley before they could envision the heights of their mountain. As the man continued to rally the crowd, he referenced the words of the ancient prophets, their stories steeped in resilience. Remember the words of Isaiah, he urged. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, they shall mount up with wings as eagles. He called them not only to remember but to act, to lift their heads up high and soar beyond the despair of their current realities. A young man, emboldened by the fiery spirit of the speaker, stepped forth from the shadows, his voice trembling but clear. What if we have already lost our strength? What if hope has waned too far? How do we rise from such depths? His question fell like a stone into the already troubled waters of the assembly. A reflective silence ensued, as their collective experience weighed heavily in the air. Each person felt the heaviness of that question, a shared understanding washing over them. They remembered the struggle of their ancestors, the cyclical dance between loss and renewal, the threadbare hope found in the depths of despair. The elder among them, a guardian of memories, spoke up gently. In every great story of restoration, there lies a period of darkness. Do not fear the valley, for it is in the depths that we uncover the truth of our spirit. Look to the dry bones, for they teach us that within every ending is a beginning waiting to unfold. Hope ignited once more, flickering like a tiny flame amid the turmoil. Each face turned toward one another, the bonds of their shared suffering tightening like a family circle, as thoughts spiraled through their minds. Could they truly grasp the meaning of their struggle? Could they embody the vision of restoration so vivid in Ezekiel's prophecy? And then, just as they began to grasp the essence of renewal, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The atmosphere shifted, crackling with an energy that beckoned both awe and caution. Was this the very moment foretold? The bones of their dreams stirred beneath the dust of time, making them question if they were ready for the awakening. As the crowd watched in astonishment, a deep voice echoed through the stillness. Who among you is willing to gather the scattered and breathe into existence that which was thought lost? In that moment of anticipation, with spirits igniting yet uncertainty lingering, a profound question arose among them all. What if to truly be restored, they would need to embrace loss, not merely seek to ignore it? The ground settled into a tense silence after the voice faded, reverberating in the hearts of those gathered. Curiosity flickered among them, igniting a flame of reflection on the implications of that call to action. To breathe life into the lifeless, to gather the scattered, was that not the heart of their endeavor? The man who had summoned them stood tall, his eyes urging them to seek deeper truths within themselves. As the night wore on, under a sky muted by clouds, the man turned to the woman who had first questioned him, the weight of her longing now transformed into a spark of resolve. What if, he asked gently, the remembrance of loss is what teaches us the art of restoration? What if we are called not just to seek the light, but to embrace the shadows from which it emerges? The flickering torch flames danced in the cool air, casting shifting shadows that echoed the sentiments of the gathered multitude. The elder, reflecting on the man's words, recalled the tales of Ezekiel, where a valley of dry bones came back to life through divine breath. In the rubble of despair, we find a deeper connection to our faith, he mused. It is not merely about restoration, it is a resurrection of purpose. The young man stepped forward again, emboldened by the unexpected wisdom in their discussions. Is it possible, he ventured, that amidst our grief and yearning, we hold within us the very seeds required for this rebirth? What if our stories marked by brokenness are the threads that weave our strength? A chorus of murmurs rose, blending doubt with hope as memories flooded back of ancestors who had wandered through barren lands, who had confronted giants, who had cried out through the silence of heaven seeming to ignore them. They understood now that every scar etched into their spirits contained a lesson, and within those scars lay not only grief but a testimony of survival. Yet, amid the exploration of their past, a new question emerged into the collective consciousness. If we are to gather these scattered stories, what does it ask of us? What permissions must we grant ourselves to live in the fullness of our truth? The air felt electric, and the crowd's heartbeats matched the rhythm of their quickening thoughts. An older woman, carrying the weight of lifetimes in her eyes, stepped forth. We must be honest with ourselves, she declared, voice tinged with both sorrow and strength. Our restoration speaks not only to the joys we yearn for but to the losses that shaped us. Each tear we shed watered the seeds of who we could become. The man with the blazing eyes nodded gravely, for this was the mystery unfolding itself before them. The revelation bore the weight of eternity. Restoration was, indeed, entangled with their willingness to grapple with the pain of their scars. To be restored, he affirmed, is an invitation to explore the depths of our brokenness, recognizing that embracing it is not a surrender but a transformation. As laughter and tears mingled in the night, the people realized that the path to restoration lay not solely in longing for what was lost but in weaving their stories together with threads of truth, vulnerability, and authenticity. They sought to breathe life into the narrative that stretched beyond mere survival toward a tapestry of shared resilience. just as the first light of dawn dared to break through the morose veil of night, a chilling wind swept through their midst. The echoes of their combined breaths reverberated with an almost palpable anticipation. Each heart now beat in tune with the question hovering in the air: what if, in reconciling their past sorrows, they held not only the key to restoration but also awakened a power within that could transform the world around them? As the first rays of dawn kissed the earth, illuminating the faces of those gathered, the air began to thrum with an impulse that felt almost sacred. The man who had posed the question stood unwavering, his gaze piercing through the lingering shadows, inviting deeper contemplation. The crowd, united in their reflection, felt the electric undercurrent of anticipation. They were not simply spectators in this moment but participants in a timeless narrative that beckoned them forward. A quiet reverence enveloped them as the elder, contemplating the words spoken the night before, finally gathered the courage to speak again. "What if," he said slowly, "the Valley of Dry Bones is not just a tale from long ago but a reminder that existence is filled with chapters, each one awaiting revelation. In every ending, there lies the promise of a new beginning. But this can only occur if we are willing to confront what lies in the depths, in the forgotten places of our hearts." His voice resonated with the wisdom of age, causing silence to settle once more like the dew on dawn's grass. The people exchanged glances, feeling the weight of his thoughts as they began to ponder the layers of history that shaped them. Each life was a story, not simply one of triumphs but also of trials, losses, and forgotten dreams. Perhaps it was time to breathe life into those narratives once hidden in shame. With a newfound boldness, the young woman who had previously questioned the man stepped forward. "But what if facing those forgotten places means confronting fears we have carefully stored away?" she urged. "Are we to delve into our pasts, not knowing what pain awaits us? How can we ensure that we do not bury ourselves in grief instead of unearthing hope?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, but the man with the blazing eyes smiled gently at her concerns. "Ah, but therein lies the mystery. The breath of restoration does not ask us to face our pain alone, it invites us to do so within community. It is together that we shall find strength, not in the concealment of our scars but in the shared illumination of our wounds." The sun had risen high, casting a soft warmth that whispered of the day's possibilities. Yet, as the light settled around them, an unsettling gust swirled, rattling the branches overhead. An unexplainable shiver coursed through the crowd, resonating with the emotional tumult lurking beneath the surface. What truths lay entwined within their shadows? The woman who had led the questioning paused, suddenly emboldened by a revelation. "What if each person here carries a fragment of the prophecy Ezekiel spoke of?" she whispered, a tremor in her voice. "What if we, too, are called to be like those bones scattered and forgotten waiting for the call to rise again?" The elders nodded, their faces alive with understanding, while younger members felt a wave of hope wash over them as they perceived the profound implications. Yet, in the collective excitement, a quiet fear hovered. If they were to embrace this call, what burdens would surface? What sacred truths and buried sorrows still waited to be acknowledged? As this thought reverberated among them, a figure stepped into the clearing, a woman whose presence emanated wisdom. She carried with her a scroll etched with ancient writings, its edges frayed and yellowed. She held it high, shared glances with the gathered multitude, and uttered a phrase that silenced even the whispers of the wind. "These words are a covenant," she spoke, her voice steady, a reminder that restoration is a sacred journey. It requires courage in the face of uncertainty. The crowd leaned into her, their collective breath held, for they understood her words were not merely echoes of the past but an invitation to delve into their own story, to seek the brokenness necessary for revival. They felt an urge to uncover and resurrect what had been laid aside and neglected, yet as the newly ignited spirit of revival swelled within them, echoing the stories of old, a weighty question lingered: would their willingness to face the depths of their own brokenness lead to true restoration, or could it unravel the already frayed threads of their souls? And, most profoundly, were they ready to embrace all that such a journey demanded? Thus, the mystery deepened, hovering in the air, inviting them toward discovery yet to come. As the sun climbed higher in the azure sky, casting golden rays that danced upon their faces, the reverberating question settled into the very fabric of the gathering. The scroll that had been raised, rich with the texture of time, beckoned souls to remember their roots, to reflect, and to reconnect with the divine truths woven through their existence. A palpable energy shimmered in the air, urging each individual to consider their role in this unfolding narrative of restoration. The woman with the scroll, eyes shimmering with conviction, began to unroll its contents. "Listen closely," she implored, her voice steady like an ancient river. Words flowed forth, echoes of promises made long ago, accounts of revival rising from desolation and redemption springing forth from ash. The tales of dry bones coming alive resonated deeply within each heart, stirring memories of lost dreams and years adrift. Ezekiel spoke of life where there was none, of a spirit that breathed into lifelessness. As she spoke, she walked amongst the crowd, her eyes scanning their faces, recognizing threads of both fear and hope woven tightly within. Perhaps, amidst our own scattered bones, lies the vitality we seek. Together, like those bones in the prophet's vision, it is our individual awakenings that might spark a collective resurgence. The crowd found themselves caught in a web of introspection, wrestling with the shared narrative of a people thirsting for unity in their brokenness. Memories floated to the surface, unfulfilled desires, the churning heartache of loss, and the shadows of regret that had lingered for far too long. Each individual sensed they existed not just as solitary beings but as part of a vast tapestry, each thread contributing to a greater design. As the elder raised his voice, steady and full of wisdom, he addressed the encroaching uncertainty. There is a sacred mystery in confronting pain. It is in facing these wounds head-on that we allow the Spirit to breathe anew into our congregated essence. Yet it is not easy. What if we unearth graves we have long kept untouched? A collective shudder passed through the crowd. They grappled with the magnitude of this endeavor, aware that with each revelation, they could unearth innumerable questions. What if their histories were entangled with sorrow? How would they bear witness to the truths that had remained hidden in the shadows? Yet amid the fear, there arose a flicker of determination within the young woman who had initially posed her doubts. What if facing these depths together means we discover the strength of compassionate bonds? She suggested, her eyes glistening with newfound courage. By supporting one another, what if we emerge not as broken individuals but as a united force capable of healing? Her words ignited a muted fire within the Crodan, understanding that perhaps, just perhaps, their scars could be transformed into landmarks of resilience. As their thoughts wove together, they felt an undercurrent shifting, a promise that whispered of renewal if they could embrace their brokenness without denial. But, as the discourse flowed, a deeper revelation turned the air thick with anticipation. And what of the weight we carry? An older voice emerged from the back, quivering with age and wisdom. What if our burdens, intertwined with those of our ancestors, carry the weight of generations hunting for redemption? Could we offer forgiveness not just for ourselves but for those who came before us? This question hung in the air, pregnant with possibility. The implication weighed heavily. It meant unlocking memories that perhaps no one wished to recall yet longed to understand. Could unearthing buried truths usher in a collective freedom? Or would it cast a heavier shadow over their hearts? The woman with the scroll lowered her gaze, sensing the gravity of the unfolding moment. As we gather strength from shared narratives, she breathed, we must remember, our restoration is a journey designed not just for us as individuals, but collectively, as a community. In solidarity, we reshape what has been lost, fostering hope in a future yet unseen. With that, silence enveloped the clearing once more, pregnant with uncertainty. The sun dipped briefly behind a cloud, casting a fleeting shadow over the gathering, and in that moment of dimness, a fresh wave of doubt washed over. Were they indeed ready to take this step towards the unknown depths? Were they prepared to face the echoes of their past that mingled with their present? As thoughts swirled, another question emerged, one that hung over them like a shimmering haze. What hidden mysteries within their own stories awaited discovery, and at what cost would these revelations come to light? The call to awaken resonated deeply, yet remained unanswered, lingering like a melody seeking its final note. As the sun continued its slow descent, casting long shadows across the gathered assembly, a profound stillness settled among them. The soft rustling of leaves accompanied the gentle murmur of thoughts, each mind racing with reflections of their unburdening. The priest, an elder of much wisdom and many sorrows, offered his presence like an anchor, his voice emerging from the silence with measured grace. Dear friends, he began, his eyes twinkling with the depths of shared experience. As we ponder the mystery of restoration and the daunting journey that lies ahead, we must wrestle not just with our own fears, but also with the narratives passed down to us. We are the inheritors of our ancestors' stories. Consider the weight of their dreams, their trials languishing in silence. An older man in the crowd, with sun-weathered skin and hands like calloused stones, spoke up. If we are to delve into the depths of our family histories, we must be prepared to confront what has often been left unspoken. My father bore scars both seen and concealed, and in his silence lay burdens too great to articulate. Intrigued murmurs rose as heads nodded in agreement. The connections among them seemed to strengthen, a web of shared understanding glimmering in the twilight. The woman with the scroll, sensing the moment grow, urged, "Consider the prophetic dry bones that came together in Ezekiel's vision. In their assembly, there was not just life returned, but purpose. What if those very bones are not just remnants of ancient tales, but also our own?" The crowd leaned closer, their collective breath hanging in anticipation. The man's voice, rich with emotion, replied, "But how do we venture into the graves of our history without becoming lost among the ruins? Is it possible to navigate the discord that might arise?" A solemn hush fell as uncertainty loomed. The woman sensed the weight of expectation pressing down. In Ezekiel's prophecy, the Spirit was the catalyst for transformation. It is through our shared fragilities and the bond of community that we release the spirit of these stories, infusing them with light rather than dread. Yet, amidst this hopeful chorus, a voice quivered from the periphery, a young boy with eyes wide like the moon. "But what if our bones are broken and scattered too far?" The crowd paused, contemplating his question. The concepts of restoration, of coming together, seemed fragile against the backdrop of such pain. How do we piece ourselves anew when the fragments feel irretrievably scattered? He asked, voice breaking slightly. The elder priest bent down to meet the boy's gaze. "It is not in denying the fractures that we will find wholeness, young one," he spoke gently. "But rather in embracing them. We may find that even the broken pieces serve to guide us towards understanding our true form. Just as Ezekiel was commanded to prophesy to the bones, we must also speak life into our fractured histories. Each voice here has a story. Together, they weave a powerful past that can enlighten our future." The crowd murmured among themselves, deep in thought. A young woman voiced what they all felt, "Yet, the journey of remembering will require courage, a willingness to sit in the discomfort of our truths." At this, the woman with the scroll smiled knowingly. "That courage is already blooming within us. Just as the bones in the valley reverberated to form a great army, we too can rise from our pain into a new understanding if we dare to do so together. The mystery isn't merely what is buried within, but deeply entwined with who will we become." In the unfolding light of connections formed and lost at eye and the dimming light, the assembly felt a slight reshaping of their spirit, a flicker of a shared resilience igniting amongst uncertainty. But as dusk approached, questions lingered like the stars waiting on the horizon. Would their gathering bond them into harmony, or would unearthing the past splinter them further? What awaited them in those depths, truth or turmoil? The echo of their shared inquiry floated in the air, a lingering whisper left to ponder. In the face of hidden histories and broken bones, would they find healing or disturbance? As the last light of day surrendered to an enveloping dusk, the assembly found themselves shrouded not only in shadows but in the unresolved tension of their collective exploration. Whispers and murmurs interlaced through the air while the stars began to pierce the velvety darkness overhead. It was as if the heavens themselves were listening, eager to witness this moment of awakening. An elder woman, her hair as silver as the moonlight capturing the scene, rose to speak. "The tales we bear are like threads of tapestry woven deeply into the fabric of our spirits," she said, her voice trembling like the leaves scattered by an evening breeze. "Each story carries not only sorrow but also grace, and if we are to honor them, we must allow their truths to guide us." The man who spoke of his father's scars nodded slowly, considering her words. "But what if these truths reveal wounds too deep for healing?" he asked, his brows furrowing. "What if those secrets are beyond the realm of understanding?" The woman with the scroll countered gently, "Consider the metaphor of the valley of dry bones. When they were first brought together, there was a cacophony of noisy clash of bone against bone, fighting to return to form. It was a tumultuous moment before life began to flow through them. Our histories may clash and echo in such a way as well. A murmur rose, reflected in the eyes of many who were familiar with grief. The boy who spoke earlier added, "But can we find life without first facing death? What if our truth is simply too terrifying? In facing the truth, we do not confront our end," the elder priest assured him, pulling together the loose strands of their discussion. "Instead, we invite rebirth. Every seed must die before it can become something new. We must look to those roots buried deep in the soil of our past if we wish to cultivate new growth." Veiled among the ancient boughs, a sudden gust of wind swept through the assembly, drawing furtive glances toward the surrounding trees, as if nature itself was echoing the call to introspection. The woman with the scroll, sensing the shift, urged them to hold their thoughts close and allow the night to deepen their contemplation. What if the dissonance holds the key to our future? Perhaps within our struggles lies the very strength we seek. As the crowd pondered this, a revered voice, that of a wise grandmother, broke through. In every family, there are skeletons long forgotten, silent witnesses to both joy and despair. To unearth them may seem harrowing, but could it not also shine a light on the shackles that have kept us bound? Echoes of agreement reverberated within the assembled hearts, yet the weight of fear still hung like a heavy curtain. But who dares descend into those depths? Another man questioned, his tone laden with uncertainty. What if one cannot bear what is found? With courage rising in the silence, the woman with the scroll interjected, "We must confront these fears together. The very act of seeking understanding, a communal acknowledgement of both light and dark, can lift the veil shrouding our histories. Just as in Ezekiel's vision, when the breath of life was breathed into the gathered bones, perhaps it is together that we shall find the breath of our own restoration." They stood at the precipice of reckoning, hearts racing with both trepidation and hope. Deep down, a collective question began to simmer: would the act of excavating their family's buried narratives build their unity, or would it scatter their resolve into the wind, irretrievable as autumn leaves? In that twilight, just as the first stars twinkled above, casting their ancient light upon the assembled, a lingering question hung unspoken yet palpably present, as they prepared to explore the buried tales of their shared past. Would they emerge united by understanding or divided by their unearthed truths? As the stars began to twinkle in earnest, their distant light seemed to awaken the spirits of the stories that lay dormant among the crowd. The air crackled with a strange electricity, a mix of anticipation and caution, as they stood before the precipice of revelation. The elder woman, still standing, took a deep breath, her gaze penetrating the darkened shadows that clung to their hearts. "Let us close our eyes and listen," she urged, her voice now enveloping them like a soft shawl. "Close your eyes and let the weight of our histories fill you. What do you hear?" The assembly obeyed, bowing their heads, the weight of silence enveloping them. The rustling of leaves and the chirping of crickets became a tapestry of sound woven together with their thoughts. Each heartbeat reverberated with the echoes of past sorrows, joys, and unvoiced fears. Then the boy spoke again, though his tone had shifted, a newfound curiosity shining in his voice. "I hear whispers," he murmured, his brow furrowing. "But they feel distant, as if they are calling from a place I cannot see." The old priest nodded knowingly. "That is the voice of our ancestors yearning to tell their tales. They await our attentiveness, our willingness to break the chains of silence. What if we are not simply listeners but vessels invited to share in the healing?" Compelled by the priest's words, the man with his father's scars felt a stirring within. "Can we welcome their pain, their failures, alongside our own?" he asked hesitantly, feeling the embers of doubt flicker. "Must we not choose which stories to unearth and which to leave buried?" "Ah," the elder woman interjected, "do you not see? The stories we shun often bear the strongest lessons. It is in the darkest shadows that the light bears witness to the invisible scars we all carry. Let us not forget Ezekiel's vision. It was not in the clashing of bones that life arose, but in the acknowledgement of their existence. As the night deepened, the congregation began to share their whispers, soft confessions of fear and confusion mingled with resonant truths. A woman unveiled a long-hidden sorrow, recounting her family's exile and longing. A man stood, sharing of an agrarian lineage forever altered by drought and despair. Each voice built upon the next, a rising crescendo of a shared history laden with hidden burdens and unspoken love, but amid this rhythm of revival, doubt remained, manifesting in the form of uncertainty. The boy leaned closer to his grandmother, voice trembling. "Is it wrong to fear what we might discover?" The wise grandmother took his hands in hers, her grip warm and steady. "Fear is a companion along this road, dear child. It is not to be banished but acknowledged, embraced, even. For within that fear lies the spark of truth, waiting to illuminate shadows. Consider the valley of dry bones, each crack and crevice a story longing to be awakened, revealing not just tragedy but also hope and resilience. At that moment, a soft breeze curled around them, as if the universe itself held its breath, waiting to see how they would wield their shared histories. The twinkling stars above winked knowingly, each a beacon of light whispering messages of restoration and transformation. As the wind settled once more, an elderly man standing at the fringe of their gathering pondered, but what if, in unearthing these truths, we encounter remnants of hatred, divisions, or betrayal? Would our families be forever fractured instead of healed? The collective breath held in expectation hung heavy in the air, as the question lingered unvarnished, its weight pressing down, pregnant with possibility. Would their courage to confront painful ghosts yield the unity they sought, or would they instead find themselves adrift, propelled into disarray by the dark undercurrents of their histories? And so, in that lingering twilight, the assembly remained suspended between fear and faith, their hearts echoing a deeper inquiry. As they gathered the courage to unearth their buried tales, would they forge a tapestry of redemption or unravel into a tapestry of despair? The wise grandmother, sensing the hesitance reverberating through the circle, allowed a moment of silence to deepen, as if to echo the profound weight of the questions posed. She then spoke again, her voice a steady current amid the swirling uncertainty. "Every story, my dear ones, holds within it a kernel of truth, both light and shadow. It is we who govern how these narratives shape our path forward." In Ezekiel's prophecy, the valley of dry bones was not just a panorama of despair, it was the very crucible through which new life was forged. A silence fell again, laced with the scented whispers of mint from the nearby bushes. The young boy, emboldened by his grandmother's steady gaze, addressed the group. "But how do we know which stories to give voice to? What if we awaken anger instead of understanding?" A faint wind began to stir, wrapping around the gathering with a tender reminder of unseen forces at play. The old priest's eyes sparkled with a mysterious glimmer. "Perhaps the answer lies not in the stories themselves, but in how we choose to hear them. What if we approach each tale as a sacred text, rather than a weapon? The stories of sorrow bring context to our marred reflections, they contextualize our present within the fabric of it all." Uneasy murmurs swept through the crowd, a mixture of curiosity, confusion, and the faintest echoes of hope. "It feels risky," spoke a young woman softly, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "What if we become lost in the recounting? What if we delve so deeply into the darkness that we lose our way?" The elder woman offered a gentle smile. "The depths of our narratives can indeed be daunting, yet we must remember that we travel together. Each voice amplifies the other, forming a lighthouse in the shadows. When we remember our interconnectedness, even the fiercest storms of our past can illuminate inspiration, compassion, and ultimately, healing." From the deep shadows, an older gentleman emerged, his hair white as moonlight, his presence commanding yet humble. "But wisdom teaches us to tread carefully," he warned, his weathered hands clasped together. "What if, as we unearth these stories, we only find the bones of betrayal, of lost love? Can we still find restoration in a place where trust has withered?" An electric quiet enveloped the assembly, everyone ruminating on the evocative imagery of lost connections. "It is a dual path we tread," the priest replied, standing firm in the face of their collective fears. "It leads us through the valley of despair towards the mountain of renewal. Just as the bones found life through recognition, so too can our fractured stories dent and dimple, wrinkle and weave offer strength. You see, acknowledgement itself holds the quiet power of transformation. Our pain, when shared, can turn into the balm for another's wound." The boy pondered this, a glimmer of understanding crossing his features. "So in telling these stories, we carry the burden together, rather than one alone. We share the weight of the scars, yielding new insights. A ripple of acceptance danced through the group. The elder woman nodded, her voice resonating with assurance. Exactly, dear child. Our histories are interwoven. A tapestry not solely defined by individual strands, but by the strength born from our diverse tales meeting one another. Each thread holds meaning, and when brought together, they can produce a pattern far more intricate and beautiful than any single thread could achieve alone. With this revelation dawning upon the room, the stars blinked in vibrant affirmation overhead. Yet, even with this newly ignited hope, an undercurrent of tension remained, a lingering question that clung to the air. Could their willingness to confront divided stories weave a stronger fabric of unity, or would they remain tangled in the unresolved strife that had plagued their lineages? And, as they tentatively began the journey of reclamation through narrative, would the wisdom shared usher them into the warmth of restoration, or would the unveiling yield only more sorrow? As the night deepened, the gathering felt the cool brush of uncertainty linger, and their hearts whispered a question left unanswered. In seeking the truths of their past, would they honor their past selves, or find themselves lost amid the weight of memories best left undisturbed? In the stillness of a new dawn, the gathered assembly stood poised on the precipice of transformation, shadows of uncertainty lingering beneath the brightening sky. Unbeknownst to them, the moment of revelation they had long awaited was drawing near. The wise woman, guardian of the scroll, raised her voice, gracefully cutting through the heavy silence. The time has come, she stated, to breathe life into our gathered bones, to unlock the mysteries hidden within these long-forgotten tales. As the sun painted the horizon with hues of gold and crimson, its light began to pierce through the remnants of their doubts, illuminating the edges of weary hearts. In Ezekiel's vision, the breath of the Almighty flowed through the bones, binding them together in unity. She continued, her voice unwavering. Let us draw upon that divine essence and summon our own voices. Each of us carries a story of loss, of yearning, and within those stories lies the power to weave our salvation. An elder, his hands weathered yet steady, stepped forward. We must not fear the scars etched into our lives, rather, we must embrace them as badges of survival. In every valley we traverse, our shared burdens forge the path ahead. His words resonated, a soft murmur of agreement rippling through the crowd. A young woman, emboldened by their exchange, began to speak. I remember my grandmother's tales of our ancestors' soft bravery in the face of despair. They did not shy away from their pain but transformed it into a testimony of resilience. What if we, too, can reclaim our narratives, honoring their struggles while igniting the flame of our own? With that, the assembly began to share their tales, stories of brokenness and redemption interlaced like threads in a tapestry. Each voice, an essential note in a symphony, echoed through the gathering. They spoke not just of their triumphs but of heartaches that shaped them, of legacies woven from sorrow and hope, transforming the air around them. A young boy's voice cut through the chorus, innocent yet profound. What if we are more than just our pain? What if the pieces scattered among us form something greater? His question hung suspended in the air, calling the assembly to consider their interconnected stories. One of the elders, filled with quiet strength, responded. We are indeed more. Each story is a star in the tapestry of our existence, illuminating paths for those who come after. When joined together, they create a constellation of resilience. Our ancestors' stories weave through with ours, revealing that we walk not alone but in a lineage that carries both light and shadow. Inspired, the crowd's energy surged. They began to articulate their collective vision of restoration, a renewal forged through communal courage in confronting the depths of their histories. The wise woman, sensing the momentum, gathered them around her. Together, we breathe life into what once lay dormant. Let us embody the vision of Ezekiel, not just as an ancient prophecy, but as a living promise. With a flick of her wrist, she unfurled the scroll that held the words of the ancient prophets. As they read the sacred passages aloud, a palpable energy enveloped them, stirring dormant embers in their spirits. The palpable anticipation transformed into action, a harmonious collaboration merging their shared histories. As their voices rose, tremors vibrated through the soil beneath their feet. Those dry bones, their fears, sorrows, and dreams began to resonate with a newfound vibrancy. The very earth seemed to respond, trembling in recognition of their united strength. Each heartbeat echoed with fervor, awakening their resolve to rise again. Suddenly, a wind swept through the square, energizing the assembly as they felt the Spirit's presence enkindling their spirits. With a shared breath, they joined as one, affirming their commitment to each other, their stories undaunted by loss, drawn together by hope. In that moment of collective ascent, the horizon shifted and the sun broke forth in radiant splendor, casting golden light upon each face, illuminating the path ahead. In the distance, their cherished Jerusalem appeared to glimmer with possibilities, a city waiting to rise with them. As they beheld this renewal, a collective cry carried forth, resonating through the heavens and down into the earth, a transformative symphony that proclaimed the truth of their journey. We are rising. We are restored. In the wake of their voices, a profound revelation washed over them. Restoration was not merely about reclaiming what was lost, it was about embracing the entire tapestry of their existence, the threads of sorrow and joy interwoven into the very essence of who they had become. The promise of restoration lay not only in their stories but in the community they had forged, a unity that bore witness to hope and healing, transcending time and space. And as they gathered in that sacred moment beneath the boundless sky, hearts aligned and spirits ignited, the echoes of their tales reverberated through eternity, forever binding them to the vision illustrated by Ezekiel. They stood not alone, but as a testament to the power of resurrection, a living legacy woven into the timeless fabric of faith, a beacon of light beckoning others to rise, to heal, and to embrace the fullness of their shared journey. In that profound understanding, they found the call to be messengers of hope, champions of restoration, and guardians of each other's stories. Here, in the sacred space they had created, they lived the truth that every ending holds within it the seeds of new beginnings, a truth that echoed in the chambers of their hearts, forever and always.